Shintong chuckled. Due to my background, I never joined them, so my knowledge is limited. But I'll warn you, tread carefully around them. Many are shrewd operators, one misstep and they'll have you wrapped around their finger. I know. Zhang Yi rolled his eyes and ended the conversation with Deng Shintong. He had already grasped the nature of the other party's organization. Judging by the situation, they were likely here to recruit him. Zhang Yi wasn't opposed to being recruited, provided the benefits were substantial enough. As for the gift mentioned, it was probably the perk of joining. After confirming his surroundings were clear of danger, Zhang Yi stepped out into the open, appearing before Brat. You came to see me. What is it you wish to give me? Zhang Yi asked directly. He wasn't one for beating around the bush, especially with strangers whose intentions were unclear. Brat looked at Zhang Yi, a smile spreading across his face. We understand you're about to face an extremely perilous battle. We hope to offer you some assistance. He gestured behind him, and a fully armed soldier approached carrying a box. Zhang Yi frowned. You stay right there. He didn't let the soldier approach further, instead quietly opening a dimensional gate. Should things turn sour, he'd make his escape immediately. Brat had never encountered someone so steadfast and was utterly speechless. He thought to himself, I'm just an ordinary person. If I dared to mess with you, a black chariot-level mutant, wouldn't that be pure suicide? All right. Brat sighed in resignation, yet personally reached out to open the heavy black metal box. As the box swung open, a transparent square container appeared before Zhang Yi. An overwhelmingly familiar aura surged forth, making Zhang Yi's blood tremble. Inside the transparent box lay a fist-sized silver crystal, radiating a mysterious glow. It was unmistakably the aura of the Source of God. Zhang Yi's heart trembled. He never imagined the gift the other party mentioned would be so precious. After all, in the post-apocalyptic world, many great nations would wage war just to obtain a single fragment of the Source of God. One Source of God represented an Epsilon-level mutant. The Pupil organization was actually presenting this to Zhang Yi as a welcome gift. Zhang Yi desperately needed it now, for he had many others around him who required a power enhancement. Only then could they aid him in the coming wars. Yet amidst his excitement, Zhang Yi remained cautiously observant of Brat. The Source of God? You intend to give this to me? He could scarcely believe it. Brat smiled faintly. Yes, Lord Chaos. This is the gift the Pupil organization presents to you. Zhang Yi pondered for a moment, his expression turning serious. Accepting this, does that mean I must join your organization? Brat chuckled and waved his hand dismissively. No, no, no. We wouldn't recruit members through such crude methods. Let me put it this way, within our organization, individuals of your caliber are far from rare. Even if you wish to join the Pupil organization, you'd still need approval from our committee. We simply wish to assist your excellency in securing victory in this pivotal war. Furthermore, should you demonstrate exceptional performance, we may consider extending an invitation for membership. Zhang Yi's lips twitched. Damn, is this Pupil organization really this arrogant? He was, after all, a black charioteer mutant, one of the few such beings in the entire world. Yet this Mildred brat before him didn't seem to hold him in particularly high regard. This was a misunderstanding on Zhang Yi's part. The Pupil organization's admission principles were extremely stringent. Even in the apocalypse, strength was only one part of the assessment criteria. If one couldn't meet their core requirements, no matter how powerful, they would be firmly rejected. This was deeply tied to the core tenets of the Pupil organization. Yet, even within the Pupil organization, only a handful of level 30+ members were privy to this rule. Zhang Yi couldn't care less about that. His gaze was already drawn to the Source of God. A free gift? Why refuse? Then I shall accept your generous offer. Zhang Yi said with a smile. Raising his hand, the crate holding the Source of God floated away from the soldier's grasp and vanished into his dimensional space. Brat placed his right hand before him and bowed slightly. On behalf of our leader, Mr. Montesquieu, I extend our greetings. May you achieve a great victory in this battle." After speaking, Brat turned and boarded the armed jet, departing Tianhai City without a second glance. Zhang Yi was left standing alone, lost in thought. Such a windfall, something he'd never even dared to dream of. Yet here it was, happening to him today. Who cares? If it's given to me, I'll take it. You insisted on giving it, so I won't be held accountable if you make an issue of it later. Zhang Yi didn't dwell on it. His immediate priority was strengthening his abilities, so accepting the source of God was a given. But who should he give it to? Lu Karen? Yang Xinxin? Or someone else? Uncle Yu and Fatty Su had limited potential. Even if they reached Epsilon using the source of God, it would take considerable time, and their ceiling remained low. Lu Karen's abilities primarily lay in engineering, offering no direct combat application. Yang Xinxin's rules-based abilities were formidable, but she'd never shown much interest in boosting her own ability index. With the next battle potentially erupting at any moment, Zhang Yi must find a way to harness this vital resource to elevate his own strength. He pondered for a moment, his gaze shifting to the dark silver ring on his right hand. Sensing the aura of the source of God, the ring vibrated faintly, an instinctive yearning for evolution to a higher plane. An idea had already taken root in his mind. To use the source of God or the spirit of sacrifice to elevate the sword in the tree to Epsilon tier. Enhancing my weapon will maximize my own power. This is the way to go. Zhang Yi didn't rush to absorb the source of God. Instead, he returned to the shelter and summoned Zhou Qi for a thorough inspection. Only after confirming that the source of God contained no radioactive substances or other harmful elements did he confidently release the sword in the tree. The instant it emerged, the sword greedily surged toward the silver gemstone, swiftly enveloping it and voraciously absorbing every ounce of its evolutionary power. Moments later, the sword in the tree had completed its absorption. It collapsed into a pile of limp branches, sated and basking in the blissful euphoria of this divine substance. This thing is brain dead now, a true vegetable, driven solely by instinct. If it were to reach Epsilon level naturally, who knows when that would happen, not in this lifetime. If only there were a way to accelerate its growth. Zhang Yi murmured softly. Qingpu Base. During wartime, operations at all three bases had shifted underground. Over 10,000 post-apocalyptic survivors now lived more than 100 meters below ground, including Qingpu District's original inhabitants and Huashu Kingdom nationals later brought in by Zhang Yi from other cities. The emergence of Yuan or resolved Tianhai City's energy crisis, eliminating all concerns about heating. As for food, the coastal location enabled fishing, and the vigorous development of agriculture ensured a stable supply. In the underground biological warehouse of Qingpu Base, within a vast underground farm, Li Jian, head of the agriculture department, was meticulously inspecting the growth of this season's crops. As a plant-type mutant, his method of enhancing abilities differed uniquely from combat-type mutants. Simply by continuously cultivating crops, he could strengthen his skill proficiency and unlock his latent mutant potential. Combined with the distinctiveness of his abilities, he received special attention from Zhang Yi, who allocated substantial resources for his development. Today, he stands as a mutant with an ability index of 8,000 points. For Li Jian, these abilities were largely inapplicable to combat. However, he could accelerate the maturation of crops within the base and significantly boost their yield. It could be said that the entire Tianhai City's current agricultural supply originated from him. Li Jian carefully plucked a cluster of green wheat from the field, meticulously counting the ears. Staff nearby recorded their characteristics and grain count. Li Jian counted each grain meticulously before relaxing his brow. This season's wheat growth is excellent, he declared to the staff. It appears this quarter's grain yield will increase by about 5% compared to last quarter. The staff member beamed with delight, continuing to take notes as he said, "This is all thanks to your hard work, Director. Tianhai City has now achieved food self-sufficiency. Even on a global scale, this is an incredibly impressive achievement." Li Jian smiled faintly, a mix of satisfaction and exclaim washing over him. This is all thanks to Mr. Zhang. Without him, our very survival would be in question. The words had barely left his lips when a familiar voice echoed from behind. Li Jian, long time no see. You look in fine spirits. What's the story? No longer needing to cultivate seeds using your own body? Li Jian stiffened momentarily at the sound, overcome by emotion. This voice was unmistakably familiar, it belonged to Zhang Yi. And it had been far too long since he'd last seen Zhang Yi. The wheat sheaf in Li Jian's hand slipped to the ground. He spun around to see Zhang Yi approaching with a smile. Mr. Zhang. Li Jian's voice carried palpable excitement. Zhang Yi glanced at him, his eyes sweeping across the vast underground farm. Beneath Qingpu Base, the cultivated underground farmland spanned dozens of times larger than the surface area. This single field alone covered over 100 acres. Similar experimental plots dotted the underground of Tianhai City by the dozens. With Li Jian's abilities and modern agricultural technology, thousands of acres could support 6 planting and harvesting cycles annually. This essentially met Tianhai City's grain requirements. After all, only the city's native residents could enjoy food made from fresh grains. Outsiders still relied primarily on canned goods and seafood. Impressive. This field is quite well organized. Perhaps one day. Zhang Yi lowered his gaze. We too could survive in the underground world. He couldn't help but think of those mysterious underground civilizations. Especially the Nash Kingdom beneath the southwest region. They too had built a complete ecological chain tens of thousands of meters underground, sustaining it for countless years. Could it be that one day, they too would be forced to retreat underground? Supreme Excellency. Every experimenter in the fields clasped their right fists over their hearts, gazing at Zhang Yi with palpable excitement. Their eyes shimmered as if beholding a deity. Ma Wenjing's training model for the Volt Shadow Troop had already been quietly adopted by major bases. This was Yang Xinxin's instruction. If they were to create a god, it had to be done thoroughly. Tianhai City must become an entirely independent region dominated by Zhang Yi. The best way to maintain stability in such an autonomous zone was to have a supreme ruler. Zhang Yi still found this manner of interaction somewhat unfamiliar, though Yang Xinxin had also advised him that those in power must maintain sufficient distance from their subordinates. Otherwise, they would lose the sense of mystery surrounding their superiors, their hearts would grow less obedient, and they would hold less reverence for Zhang Yi's commands. Zhang Yi nodded to them, then turned his gaze to Li Jian. You've been in pretty good form lately. Has your ability improved again? Li Jian smiled. Thanks to you, I recently underwent the organization's assessment. The latest report shows I've reached the standard of 8,000 points in my ability index. Zhang Yi's smile grew even brighter. Excellent. My special training for you has not been in vain. He waved to the others, and the staff immediately understood that Zhang Yi needed to speak privately with Li Jian. They all withdrew. Once they were alone, Zhang Yi's expression turned serious. Li Jian, I have a crucial task for you. This matter could determine the very survival of Tianhai City. Hearing this, every muscle in Li Jian's face tensed. He straightened his posture, his heart racing with excitement. He never imagined someone like him, merely a farmer, could be entrusted with such a crucial mission by Zhang Yi. Zhang. I mean Supreme Excellency. Wherever I'm needed, just give the order. Even if it costs me my life, I will fulfill my duty. Zhang Yi studied Li Jian intently, his brow furrowing slightly. After a long moment of contemplation, a faint sigh escaped him. This task might truly cost Li Jian his life. Yet now, Zhang Yi had no choice but to proceed, for time was exceedingly tight. I need you to cultivate a special plant for me, a very special plant. As soon as Zhang Yi finished speaking, a single thought caused the silver-gray ring on his right wrist to shift. The massive sword in the tree transformed, extending tendrils like vines. Li Jian stared wide-eyed at the tree sword, now resembling a living creature. I can feel its immense, surging vitality. This plant is truly extraordinary. Supreme Excellency, you wish me to cultivate it? Zhang Yi nodded. Yes. I know your cultivation method. Using your own flesh and blood to nurture it is the fastest and most effective way. Zhang Yi looked at Li Jian, his gaze calm as he spoke. This plant is exceptionally unique. It is my vital weapon. Soon, Tianhai City will face an incredibly arduous battle. As the guardian of Tianhai City, I require greater power to protect everyone. Li Jian. Zhang Yi fixed his unwavering gaze on Li Jian. Will you join me in protecting Tianhai City? In safeguarding everything we've built together over these past 3 years? Li Jian had no choice, for Zhang Yi had come merely to inform him of his decision. Yet as a competent leader, issuing orders also required consideration for his subordinate's state of mind. Especially concerning a mission involving moral peril, if Li Jian's resolve faltered, even if he reluctantly accepted the task, his efficiency would inevitably suffer. Sure enough, after hearing Zhang Yi's words, Li Jian understood the gravity of the situation. He nodded firmly. Supreme Excellency, you gave me this life. If you hadn't taken in me and my wife back then, we would have perished in the frozen wilderness. And now you're protecting the safety of the entire Tianhai City. Even if it costs me my life, I'll see this through flawlessly. Zhang Yi smiled faintly, thoroughly satisfied with Li Jian's commitment. Rest assured, I'll provide you with the utmost security. Moreover, your living standards, yours, your wife Zhang Jianfang's, and your newborn daughter Li Bei's, will be aligned with those of the base's leadership. Should anything happen to you, I'll protect them for the rest of their lives. Li Jian and Zhang Jianfang were both in their 40s. They had once had a son, but sadly, he died during the snow worship sect war years ago. But people must look forward. Last year, they welcomed a daughter at the base, naming her Li Bei. The couple doted on this late-in-life daughter, who was the apple of Li Jian's eye. With Zhang Yi's intervention, Li Jian's final lingering concerns were completely resolved. Thank you, Supreme Excellency. Li Jian said from the bottom of his heart. Zhang Yi brought Li Jian back to the shelter and immediately assigned him a medical room, where he would focus solely on cultivating the sword in the tree. The sword in the tree was now a plant, having shed nearly all human attributes. Zhang Yi believed that harnessing Li Jian's abilities could accelerate its growth, enabling it to rapidly absorb the divine essence from the source of God and complete its evolutionary leap in life. Once that happened, Zhang Yi's own power would ascend to a new tier. Everything was meticulously planned. After Li Jian's return, Zhou Qi took charge of the next phase. Li Jian's ability, devotion, allowed him to accelerate plant growth and enhance their quality using his own flesh and blood alongside his supernatural powers. This process exacted a tremendous toll on his own body. Consequently, Zhou Qi had prepared ample nutrient solutions and medications to prevent any mishaps during the cultivation process. For this purpose, she specifically commissioned Lu Karen to craft a transparent biological chamber for Li Jian. Upon arriving and seeing everything prepared, Li Jian understood he was merely a cog in the plan. But being a man of deep understanding, he harbored no resentment. Calmly, he changed into the provided clothing and, guided by Zhou Qi, lay down inside the nutrient chamber. Next, tubes were connected to his body to inject nutrient solutions and life-sustaining medications. Zhang Yi watched the process unfold. The sword in the tree in his right hand dissolved from its bracelet form into a mass of green plant matter, then leapt directly into the nutrient solution. Like a leech, it burrowed from Li Jian's arm into his body. Even Zhang Yi winced at the sight. Truthfully, if the situation weren't so urgent, he'd have found it hard to bear. But Li Jian was long accustomed to such procedures, so he simply closed his eyes calmly. Zhang Yi reached down, scooped flour off the ground beside him, and pointed toward the nutrient chamber as he instructed the cat carefully, "Flour, you'll be staying here for the next few days. Don't go anywhere. Keep a close watch. Prevent any unexpected incidents. This is crucial for us, understand?" After speaking, Zhang Yi opened the dimensional space and piled a mountain of dried fish for it. Flour yawned widely, stretching its jaws, and purred lazily, "Meow woo, got it." It's just a little thing. Only then did Zhang Yi leave with peace of mind. He hoped that before the next war arrived, the sword in the tree could complete its evolution. But no one knew when that day would come. Zhang Yi then headed over to find Yang Xinqin. He needed to discuss matters concerning the Pupil organization with her. Although the other party had expressed goodwill and even sent a generous gift, Zhang Yi deeply understood a principle: unwarranted kindness usually hides ulterior motives. Saying it like that might sound a bit harsh. But being cautious never hurt. At the very least, he needed to figure out if the other side had any schemes involving him. Zhang Yi arrived at the communication room. Yang Xinqin, now serving as field commander, was coordinating with representatives from the 6 major regions to discuss operational details. Another complex and drawn-out meeting. With so many factions involved and the need to gauge the international community's response to determine potential external reinforcements, it was impossible to formulate a sound battle plan quickly. But the most critical task now was mobilizing forces. Operating on their home turf gave them a significant advantage, yet the greatest disparity between them and the Mist Valley forces remained the high-level mutants. This single operation alone, including the unit that attacked the Columbia Naval Fleet, saw Mist Valley deploy a staggering 11 Epsilon-class mutants. As for captain-level mutants, they were merely elite soldiers in the enemy's ranks, deploying 700 or 800 at once. This represented absolute overwhelming force. Even in direct confrontation, without the advantage of terrain, Huashu Kingdom held no upper hand. Thus, this time, they desperately needed outside assistance. However, when Zhang Yi arrived at the control center, he received a piece of good news. Meng Yuanjun delivered the responses to their external aid requests. We've sent aid requests to over 20 nations, regions, and special organizations. 11 have responded. Excluding some neighboring small states, which could only symbolically dispatch small units of mutant troops, the real assistance will come from Columbia and Fremons. Columbia and Fremons rank among the top 2 most powerful nations within the world's 10 major factions. Of course, among these 10 organizations, Neon now exists in name only. However, the strength of these 2 nations is comparable to that of the Huashu Kingdom, placing them firmly within the world's top 5. With their mutant forces providing support, their contribution surpasses that of dozens of smaller nations combined. Zhang Yi inquired, what about the other nations? Like those established Europowers? As for Brahma, Zhang Yi couldn't be bothered to ask about it at all. Brahma shares a border with the Huashu Kingdom and harbors deep-seated conflicts with it. Brahma views the Huashu Kingdom as a direct competitor and has been covertly stirring trouble. Take the recent incident in the southwest region, they actually sent agents with ulterior motives. Thus, Zhang Yi harbored little goodwill toward this nation and certainly couldn't expect them to send reinforcements. However, based on his understanding, the nations of Western Europe possessed formidable strength. Take Britannia, the former world's foremost superpower. Having clashed with the Knights of the Round Table, he knew their prowess was formidable. If those fellows could come. Better if they didn't. Zhang Yi recalled his sword in the tree. If King Arthur truly arrived, not seeking his life would be the best outcome. Meng Yuanjun stated, currently, no region in the world is at peace. Understand this, we are not the only ones facing existential challenges. Western Europe cannot wage war across half the planet. Even if they dispatched mutant beings, they'd be no higher than captain level. It holds little strategic value and can be disregarded. Han Chanzhua frowned. Only Columbia and Fremons? How many can they send? Meng Yuanjun glanced at the documents in his hand and replied slowly, from Fremons, they've sent the top-tier superhuman from the Pantheon, Thunder God Purin. As for Columbia, the one heading to the Asia-Pacific region to handle matters is Newton from the Natural Science Association. Newton? The name was so familiar it bordered on comical. In contemporary society, it was customary for official aliases of mutants to be named after mythological figures. This served 2 purposes. First, it clearly indicated the nation or region of origin. Second, mythological names were far more memorable than the complex names of various countries. Using historical figures as codenames, however, was a first. Yang Xinxin explained softly to Zhang Yi, because Colombia's history is very brief, and they couldn't very well adopt Native American mythology as their own traditional mythology. Zhang Yi thought of this and couldn't help but recall the Lord of the Ocean, Cardalus, and the Piercer, Canelo. Indeed, for Epsilon-class mutants, continuing to borrow myths from other civilizations would seem forced. Using pioneers of scientific schools as codenames perfectly reflects their reverence for science. Zhang Yi shrugged. But Newton wasn't Colombian either. Yang Xinxin's eyes crinkled into crescent moons as she smiled. If we're nitpicking, as an immigrant nation, they probably didn't have much to draw from for names. Zhang Yi was just joking around. In truth, this was the only thing anyone could tease Colombia about. Yet one couldn't deny they possessed the planet's most formidable strength, one of the few powers capable of challenging Huashu Kingdom. Zhang Yi inquired, General Meng, what about those two you mentioned, Thunder God Purin and Newton? How powerful are they? Meng Yuanjun glanced at the documents in his hand and replied with a smile, according to official intelligence, both of them are Black Chariot-level mutants. The expressions of the representatives from the 6 major regions visibly relaxed. At this juncture, an abundance of low-tier combatants would be utterly useless. What they lacked precisely was high-tier combat power. Though each nation had dispatched only 1 Epsilon this time, these were undoubtedly the cream of the crop among their respective mutants. This was hardly surprising. Sending a weakling would carry a high probability of death in battle. Fighting the underground civilization was no trivial matter. Li Changgong rubbed his chin and said gravely, if 2 black chariots could lead our forces into battle, our chances of victory would increase significantly. But what if that Hades gatekeeper also appears? How would we counter that? He spread his hands, his gaze intense as he looked at Meng Yuanjun, Li Guangxiao, and Zhang Yi. Both the Xinjiang region and the East Sea region possess Huashu Kingdom's most advanced space-based weaponry technology. Even Tianhai City has mastered formidable land-based heavenly dimensional weapon. With the war escalating, enemy attacks could strike any region at any moment. Therefore, I believe you should open your weapon technologies and share them with us. Zhang Yi's heart stirred. He had heard of the heavenly dimensional weapon deployed by the East Sea region during that battle. Launching weapons from military satellites in space to strike the enemy directly. Even against a Black Chariot-level Mist Valley Silver Armor General, they delivered devastatingly effective lethality. Such weapons surpassed the Tianhai City cannon in both element of surprise and the speed of their descent from the heavens. He was deeply intrigued. Clearly, the Xinjiang and East Sea regions, possessing the strongest military forces, had kept this technology secret. Meng Yuanjun smiled faintly and readily agreed, I can share the technology for space-based weapon with you all. However, constructing such military satellites is costly and time-consuming. They simply cannot be deployed in the short term. Li Changgong interjected, that's a problem we must handle ourselves. Commander Meng, our greatest challenge now, and for the foreseeable future, remains external enemies. Please don't hold back. Meng Yuanjun nodded. That's easily settled. I'll have the design blueprints sent to you immediately. When confronting matters of great principle, Meng Yuanjun held nothing back. Li Changgong's reasoning was sound. If all other major regions were destroyed, Xinjiang region, as the heart of Huashu Kingdom, wouldn't fare well either. Brother regions were interdependent, mutual aid was the only way forward. Zhang Yi spread his hands. I can give you the blueprints for the weapon in Tianhai City too. Zhang Yi's generosity caught everyone off guard. After all, based on their understanding of Zhang Yi, this man wouldn't even consider it a trip worthwhile unless he found money lying around. Li Changgong nodded. This time, you've finally shown some sense. Zhang Yi smiled faintly. I've always prioritized the greater good. If you're willing to use them, then take them. He was indeed being generous. While the Tianhai City cannon was complex, it still fell short compared to space-based weapon launched via military satellites. Crucially, its deployment required massive quantities of yuan stones as fuel. Yet currently, the entire Huashu Kingdom's largest Yuan stone vein lay under his control. Even if other regions obtained the blueprints, practical implementation would prove extremely cumbersome. Another factor was that all the weapons, mechanical products, or fortifications Liu Karen created would undergo continuous upgrades as her capabilities advanced. The blueprints Zhang Yi was handing over now would become obsolete within months, surpassed by the technology Liu Karen would master by then. The weapons issue was relatively easy to resolve, but Zhang Yi raised a new problem at this moment. Open attacks are easy to dodge, but hidden threats are hard to guard against. When we had an undercover agent in Tianhai City before, I warned you all to be cautious about this. This time, all major regions were attacked. The enemy clearly originates from an underground civilization, yet they launched direct assaults on the capitals of each region. Judging by their offensive tactics, they possess remarkably detailed intelligence on our operations. Have you considered the possibility that Mist Valley infiltrators might already be operating within your own territories? These words instantly cast a heavy pall over the assembled crowd. They truly hadn't contemplated this possibility. Instinctively, they had always regarded themselves as superior beings. Even when facing entities from the underground world, they considered them inferior creatures. Moreover, the notion of beings disguised as humans infiltrating the major regions to gather intelligence was utterly beyond their imagination. Not just them, even Zhang Yi found it hard to conceive before discovering Wuluan Ping. That creature, whose true form was 2 or 3 times larger than a human, could actually disguise itself as a human, and do so with uncanny realism. Zhang Yi said, "Of course, this is merely speculation. After all, as you mentioned earlier, even if there were a connection, it would be between my Jiangnan region and East Sea region, which have direct ties to Mist Valley. But what if?" Meng Yuanjun immediately declared, "I'll dispatch personnel immediately to conduct a thorough investigation across the entire Xinjiang region. Determining whether someone is human, or more specifically, a citizen of the Huashu Kingdom, can be achieved through a simple blood test. Genetic technology has advanced tremendously." Han Shanzhua frowned, "But what if humans are working for them? How would we handle that?" Meng Yuanjun sighed, "If that were the case, it would be extremely difficult. No plan is foolproof. They couldn't conduct a blanket sweep of the entire nation. They could only do their utmost to prevent any outsiders from the Mist Valley from remaining hidden within Huashu Kingdom. Even the scattered displaced people outside their reach were impossible to screen." Zhang Yi stated, "I guarantee Tianhai City has no suspicious individuals. As for other areas, you'll have to handle them yourselves. Every single person in Tianhai City must undergo an extremely rigorous background check. Moreover, those in key positions must be personally vetted by Yang Xinxin to ensure absolutely no one poses a threat in the upcoming war." After speaking, he turned to Zhu Zheng, "Commander Zhu, we must excuse ourselves for now. You handle the rest of the negotiations." Zhu Zheng nodded upon hearing this, "Rest assured, I've got this covered." Zhang Yi exchanged a glance with Yang Xinxin. She understood and closed the video conference. Zhang Yi mentioned that the Pupil organization had sent people to find him. "Xinxin, what are your thoughts on this?" "The Pupil organization, you say?" Yang Xinxin lowered her eyelids, her expression turning distinctly grave. "I know a bit about that organization. Its history is incredibly ancient, dating back even before the Common Era. It's said that their lineage rivals that of the origin sects of the Holy See. Brother, you must be cautious with this group. They are extremely dangerous and immensely powerful." Zhang Yi nodded. "I understand. An organization that can casually gift the source of God to others, how could they not be powerful? At the very least, they possess power rivaling that of a nation." Yang Xinxin continued, "They gave you the source of God solely because Huashu Kingdom is the next main battlefield against the underground civilization. This is the first large-scale counter-invasion war between humanity and the underground civilization on this planet. They gave you the source of God merely to use you as a pawn." At this point, she smiled faintly. "Of course, it also proves they're evaluating you, hoping to recruit you into their organization." Yang Xinxin then revealed something else to Zhang Yi. Before the apocalypse, the Pupil organization had also extended an olive branch to her, but she had later refused it. Zhang Yi found this utterly unsurprising. With Yang Xinxin's intellect, she could easily achieve tremendous success in numerous fields. Why did you refuse them? Yang Xinxin replied, the Pupil organization has a rigid hierarchy. Even if I joined, I'd only be at the lowest level. Moreover, I couldn't see through their true nature, so I dared not join rashly. Besides, I've heard about their initiation ceremony. It's a method I simply can't accept. Zhang Yi grew curious. Initiation rites? Yang Xinxin's lips curled into a devilish grin, her smile wicked. Brother, what do you think an organization like this, gathering elite talents from every field worldwide, would do to maintain loyalty and prevent leaks? Zhang Yi pondered briefly before replying, a blood oath. Only by committing wicked deeds together, each holding the other's secret, can true trust be earned. So I suspect the initiation rite involves committing an act so heinous it could never be accepted by society. Right? Like killing someone. Yang Xinxin said, that theory does exist. But there are alternatives, especially for female members. Zhang Yi finally understood the meaning behind Yang Xinxin's smile. You mean sex? In social relationships, people want to integrate into a group with shared interests or demonstrate loyalty to superiors. For men, it's usually a pledge of loyalty, either taking the fall for someone else or participating in undisclosed activities together. For women, the simplest and most direct method is through sex. While this form of loyalty may not be the strongest, it has historically been the most readily accepted. They always seek ways to gain control over subordinates. Yang Xinxin spoke slowly. My sponsor once described that initiation ceremony to me. New members must wear a cloak and mask. Naturally, nothing is worn beneath the cloak. Then they enter the ceremony hall for intimate interaction with existing members. At this point, masks are removed to confirm identities, creating a ritual akin to a blood oath. Yang Xinxin puffed out her cheeks, feeling annoyed. Of course I refused. Who would accept such outrageous initiation demands? It's utterly despicable and shameful. Zhang Yi was thoroughly shocked upon hearing this. Truly, Western organizations were remarkably open-minded. Western developed countries have always been quite liberal when it comes to matters of sexuality. Zhang Yi imagined the scene and suddenly realized, if Fatty Su knew about such a good opportunity, he probably wouldn't refuse. Yang Xinxin cautioned Zhang Yi, be extremely wary of that group. They're powerful, but also dangerous. Rumor has it they worship Satan. Zhang Yi couldn't help but widen his eyes at this. Worship Satan? What kind of nonsense is that? It's utterly bizarre. Satan is the demonic figure in monotheistic mythology, the ruler of hell. In the common perception, he represents the most evil and terrifying existence. Yet members of the Pupil organization actually worship such a being? The more he heard, the more bizarre it felt. Yang Xinxin smiled faintly. So what? The difference between gods and demons is sometimes just a matter of perspective. No one can definitively say which side truly represents justice. Brother, do you remember that concept we once proposed? If myths and legends are true, then the gods within them were humans, or other beings, possessing extraordinary powers in ancient times. Then why couldn't demons be the defeated ones from those divine wars? Zhang Yi found the question rather complex. More importantly, he wasn't particularly interested. He never paid much attention to matters unrelated to his personal interests. I understand. From now on, I'll maintain a safe distance from that organization. Though they gifted me the source of God, I didn't ask for it, they offered it freely. So if they try to use that as leverage to demand favors, I won't give them the time of day. Zhang Yi was refreshingly straightforward, free of any mental baggage. Yang Xinxin nodded with satisfaction. That's the spirit. That's my good brother. After a full day of deliberation, they finally formulated a relatively sound battle plan. The first step was for Zhang Yi to take Daisheng, the heavenly jet star, across the nation. They would deploy the spatial coordinates of the star cluster at key nodes across the 6 major regions. Spatial teleportation abilities were a fairly common skill among space ability mutants. For instance, Zhang Yi's Space Shuffle, or Li Changnong's 6 Realms Without Distance, could achieve similar effects. However, Daixing's reach was far greater, capable of covering the entire Huaxu Kingdom in multiple crucial locations. Of course, establishing spatial coordinates nationwide was impossible. Therefore, the chosen locations were all places likely to be attacked. For instance, the capitals of the 6 major regions, cities with important resource points, and areas with relatively dense populations. The Xinjiang region directly contacted Zhang Yi, inviting him to the Xinjiang region. After all, Daixing's spatial abilities only functioned after coordinates were set. Before activating his abilities, he was scarcely stronger than an ordinary person, necessitating Zhang Yi to swiftly transport him between locations. Zhang Yi did not refuse, but mindful of his past conflicts with Xinjiang, he exercised caution this time, bringing Flower along to accompany him to the region. The journey spanned thousands of kilometers, yet he arrived in relatively short order. He only stopped at the outskirts of Xinjiang city, contacting Meng Yuanjun.